Reclaiming Timeless Ways, Mike Traster, Simon Fuller, welcome aboard another show. And I guess officially we can say the third of a series. I think it takes three to get to a series, doesn't it, Mike?
I guess, yeah.
I don't know. So we had a yes show recently,
Right.
followed by a no show.
Right.
The word no, not a no show, no
Right.
show.
Right.
And now is our third show in this series, this little side series. Mike, it's going to be called?
Maybe I'll tell you.
Yeah. Maybe.
Maybe
You've
I
guessed.
won't. Maybe it'll be called maybe. So we're going to do a lot of repetition. This because these are like
Repetition is the key to retention, though, Mike. So, see, at the end of the day, this is
that
good.
was one of your sayings earlier. I liked it. So we'll come back to that in a later show.
All right.
So somewhere in the Bible it talks about three strands making a rope,
Yeah.
right? And they each one reinforces the other two, and
Sure.
each two reinforces the third. And between the three of them, they're much, much stronger, right?
Sure.
So yes and no and maybe all are reflections and reinforcements of each other, different perspectives on the same body of discipline about what can I do with my resources
Sure.
of time, energy, trust, goodwill, money, reference.
Right.
Can I have a reference? For who? For what?
Right.
Of course you can have a reference. No, who are you? What is it? What do you want a reference for?
You're going to ask somebody for a job and say, I know so-and-so, he'll vouch for me. Well, do you want to?
Right, right. Oh, and I've been worked over a couple times and had to go back and apologize to somebody. But the way it worked out was when they started being squirrely, I went back to the person before the arrangement was finalized. And I said, I'm losing my faith in this person. I want to apologize to you for giving a reference to them. I don't think you should trust them. And
Yeah.
as it turned out, they were not trustworthy at all.
Yeah.
So if you can do two things. You can sit there and just watch in silent horror because you're embarrassed, or you can fix it,
Right.
right? So this was somebody that needed a place to live, and it was a local person in the real estate community who was going to give them a place to live in exchange for labor on an old house that needed refurbing. And when they started screwing up everything, I went back and I said, no, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I really, my compassion got ahead of my logic.
Yeah.
And I gave you a terrible reference for this person, and I need to take it back. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And his response, I think he was relieved, but he said, you did your best. You meant well.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to just let it boil over.
Well, and that's key because now, obviously, you and the reference have that bridge is burned.
Right.
But you and the person you referenced to,
Right.
Or you were used as a reference to, that bridge also could have been burned
Oh,
if
yeah.
you'd have let them believe that you were also a shyster, because that's what they would have filled in their own gap.
Or a fool.
Yeah, they would. Well, the first thing typically people are going to assume is, boy, he worked me over.
Well, he knew me well enough to know that that wasn't the case.
Okay.
Because we had other business dealings.
Gotcha.
And my word was kept perfectly. But he would have seen me as being a fool,
Yeah.
or somebody who was too soft-hearted and not hard-headed enough. Because, your head is not supposed to be like granite, but it's also not supposed to be like pudding,
Yeah.
So I withdrew the reference
Yeah.
very clearly.
Yeah.
And I said, I have effed up here, and I need to fix this with you before you get taken.
Yeah.
And so we fixed it, and then he was down the road. I think he wound up in a lot of trouble with the authorities. He was a con artist and a player. So, like what we talked about, so the end of that story is zero damage was done.
Right.
But I had to get ahead of it. I had to fix it. So if you've given somebody you've extended your goodwill and you've given somebody a reference, and then they show their bad side. You have to fix it before it blows up.
And the nice thing there, or maybe the lesson learned is, or partially, is, you've got a yes show, you've got the no show,
Right?
and then you've got the maybe. Well, maybe eventually has to turn into yes or no.
It does.
So what maybe can do is buy a little time, and maybe
There you go.
what you would have hoped for,
Right.
should have dug into them a little more, would have liked to, and we've all been in that situation, but maybe at least buys you a little time to figure out which direction I should go versus prematurely throwing either of the other words out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need clarity,
Right.
and we need performance agreements,
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
There has to be some baseline. It's like you're gonna have to, let's say, with this person, with the residents, you must do 1 hour of labor a day, every day, 30 days of the month without exception.
Right.
And the only way around that is if you're not gonna work on Sunday, then you give me 2 hours on Saturday. And that doesn't mean an hour and 10 minutes. It means
Right.
2 hours, period. And not 2 hours of like an old drunken bum, 2 hours of work,
Right.
So, a time schedule, conditions to be met. Is there an old debt that wasn't paid off? And if it hasn't been paid off and it hasn't been forgiven, then why would you consider putting yourself out again?
Sure.
You know, what are you going to do to fulfill that old? Now you're going to have 2 agreements,
Yeah.
and can you really afford to do that?
Right.
Are you being a fool, or am I being a fool?
Sure.
Right. Are they capable of fulfilling the agreement?
Yeah.
Mentally, morally,
Yeah.
physically, financially, energetically, are they capable, or is it just, are you looking at somebody who's desperate enough that they're going to lie?
Yeah. Morally is always the first thing you got to try to figure out, and that's maybe one of the toughest to know
Right.
at first
Right,
to somebody you've met recently.
right. When I bought my little house, it was an old fixer, it was beat to hell, it was in outrageously horrendous condition. I won't go into too much detail about the carpets, other than to say that they were glued down every square inch to the wood floor under them, and they reeked.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at they reeked.
Yeah.
And I had to pull them up by hand. But the amount of money that was wanted on a monthly basis, I think that maybe we could have struggled and met it for 3 months, and then we would have started stumbling.
Right.
So I said, I can't do that. I can't make that agreement with you. It would make you very comfortable for me to say yes, but after 3 months, we would start not liking ourselves and each other.
Right.
So I'm going to offer you $50 a month less, but then I know I'll be able to fulfill that
Right.
promise instead of breaking a promise.
Right.
What good is a broken promise?
Yeah.
More money and less performance,
Yeah.
or less money and perfect performance?
Right.
Which do you prefer?
Right.
So he's like, I never heard anybody offer less, and it made it sound more sensible, but it sounds more sensible, okay.
Yeah.
And then we fulfilled it. We actually wound up paying it off like 1.5 years sooner than we were expected to.
So you were still able to, but at least you didn't promise that level. You promised where you were comfortable.
We didn't screw ourselves into the corner.
Right.
We were careful because
Because just in cases, scenarios happen.
transmissions blow up.
Unexpected bills are
do they?
always lurking around the corner.
Right, exactly. So we said, it's not that things could happen, it's that things do happen.
Right. And they will.
They will happen. He'll lose his job, or my money will be stuck in the mail somewhere,
Right.
or God knows what, and then all of a sudden, you're out and you got to talk to the guy who you represented me to.
Yeah.
So we're all in bad shape. So we offered less, but less was more because we could fulfill it, and we did
Yeah.
perfectly.
Yeah.
So we had a good foundation.
Yeah.
So like I said earlier, you can trust them. You can actually historically trust them with your time, your money, your resources, your reputation, right? Because like when I made a reference for this guy, I put my reputation on
Right.
the line
Right.
poorly.
Right.
I didn't steward my reputation well. I didn't find out anything about this guy.
Right.
And I didn't because I wanted to be the nice guy.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the rescuer.
Yeah.
So here I am. I'm Sir Galahad. The sun is shining brilliantly off my armor, right? And I'm marching in like a knight errant, and I'm getting used and fooled,
Right.
right? He's funning me,
Yeah.
and I'm the stooge.
Yeah.
So, but I fixed it quick,
Yeah.
and that was the thing. I didn't go stand there like a deer in the headlights. So, like, if a maybe becomes a yes, and then you start looking at it and you're like, oh God, now what have I done? And you just stand still.
You're culpable now.
Right.
You're
You
just
have to
as
speak.
culpable. Yeah. You
have to
absolutely.
speak.
Yeah. But it does. Maybe buys you a little time if you don't know the right answer. That's another word to throw out there, Mike. Hopefully,
Right.
the point is in order to properly reference somebody or make a deal, you've got to know the full scope of the deal,
Right.
the individual, and maybe can get you to that point before you make a yes or a no conclusion.
Right. The other thing is, and this is something, I'm going to talk about this in another program more, but you watch, when people are always the star of the show, or when they do something for others and they're always bragging about it,
Yeah.
those people are generating obligation. Okay? So they're overvaluing what they do and they're always marketing themselves.
Yeah.
That means if they do something for you, they're going to obligate you. They're going to put you on the spot. See, because they're advertising way too much.
Yeah.
Right? So that would be a person I would not trust.
Right.
And when I've had somebody in the community offer to give me free wood or whatever, I was looking at them and I'm going, no. You told me about all these things you did for all these people. And each one of these people now is obligated.
Right.
Do I want to get set up like that?
Yeah.
No. So even if I need something, free fencing or wood or old paint, not from that guy.
Yeah.
So I've said no. I've literally said no to, somebody on several occasions for that very reason,
Yeah.
And that's the end of that conversation, unless
Yeah.
you have more to add.
No. Yes. No. Maybe. Which is kind of a middle show, or like you said, a revisiting of the yes or no. And ultimately, those are the three options you have when somebody poses a question,
Right.
asks to make a deal, or and those are just things that you're strongly encouraging myself, you, to think about as you give that answer back.
Right. Somebody asked me if I would teach one of their friends Tai Chi. And I said, who? And they told me who it was and what they did for a living. And I said, probably not.
Yeah.
Ooh, why? Because I'm not going to give them a short course in something that takes years to learn.
Yeah.
So that they can start teaching the outward imitation of the art. It's something for them to market that they can get quick, but they really don't understand the essence because it takes tens of thousands of repetitions to begin to be competent,
Yeah. Right.
Like how many times did Jimmy Connors, the tennis player, hit a tennis ball before he became minimally competent?
Right.
Not a master, but just minimally, where he wasn't falling over the tennis ball.
Right.
So I said no.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh my God, you're a horrible person. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. No, this is not like a trick circus poodle thing. This is an important art. And we're not going to water it down so your friend can make a couple extra $100 a month.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So,
Lessons learned.
yeah.
Thank you for joining another episode of Reclaiming Timeless Ways. Have a fantastic day.